Monday to Friday at 12:30 p.m. only on Bloomberg Quint.
Good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching Ask BQ on Bloomberg Quint Live, and I'm Navneet Saluja D'Souza.
And I'm Alex Matthew. Well, if you've got questions on equity, you can send them in to us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp. You can also call us on 022-454-04141, or you can send us a mail on askbq@bloombergquint.com. Just make sure to add the Ask BQ hashtag.
All right, before we get into the individual queries on the show here, let's tell you what the markets are doing. And this Friday, I think it's going to be a good close to the week as well. We had a gap up opening, and the good news is we've sustained that gap up opening. In fact, markets have propelled higher than the opening levels as well. So let's just pull up the key indices. Nifty, Sensex, Bank Nifty, all of them sitting with good amount of gains. In fact, Bank Nifty now trading around the mark of 28,100. Let me also tell you, Nifty is inching very closer to its all-time high levels of 11,495. So watch out for that one. And broader markets also surging in trade. So if you look at the Nifty mid cap as well as the small cap index, both registering gains of between 6/10 to almost 8/10%. Let's just pull up the Nifty contributors list and tell you which are the stocks that are contributing to the gains. So top on the list is IDC. So the list actually constitutes of all the heavyweights: ICICI Bank, Reliance, Kotak Mahindra Bank. But very importantly, to look at the losing side. So the key losers that you're seeing, they're only contributing only 5 to 6 points on the downside. That's telling you the rally that you're seeing today, it's broad-based, and that's a good news. In fact, the advanced decline ratio, the market breadth, has been looking very positive today. It's almost 2:1. Watch out for that as well. All the key sectoral indices have been trading in the positive territory, with gains led by Nifty Metals, which was your top loser yesterday. Pharma and as well as FMCG has bounced back. Just want to highlight few gainers from the broader markets. Apollo Hospitals have been having a good run in the last few sessions. Long positions have also been seen in the futures and options side. So 5.5% higher for this one. Dalmia Bharat doing pretty well. From the FMCG pack, you've got something like Himami, which is surging with gains of almost 4.5%. And Orissa Minerals also up 13 to 14%. On the losing side, actually, these are the stocks which are witnessing profit booking. They all were up in the last few sessions. So something like Saxoft, Federal Bank, Mindtree, IT stocks, have been surging, so that's also seeing some profit booking of also down almost 2% in trade. Net, Alex, but it's turning out to be a great trading session.
All right. Well, that's how it looks this Friday. It seems to be a good end to the week. You can send in all your questions, as I said, right on the top of the show. Just want to give you a small reminder. Send in your question just once, and if possible, ask about one particular stock so we can take as many queries as possible. With that, let me just introduce the experts that we have on the show today. Sharmila Joshi, who is an independent advisor, and also Aditya Agarwala of Securities are here to answer all of your questions. Right at the top, Sharmila, we've got quite an interesting question that I think will benefit a lot of our viewers. Shivakumar, the first gentleman to write in on the show, is asking for an option. He wants to go in for a systematic investment plan for buying stocks. He wants a mid-cap stock with good fundamentals, perhaps one that has seen correction. I think that has been the broad theme, people looking for a value buy at this stage.
Yes, so I think, definitely I think it's a great idea, because we are sort of treading water, sort of, so to speak, because we don't know whether markets will rally much more from current levels or whether we are really going to top out at this level. So doing an SIP always works for you, and the thought again is right that if you go into a mid cap, you may benefit more because they have corrected, and the growth is always more in mid caps from a longer term perspective. One recommendation would be to then also choose sort of sectors that you would like to be in. I think one immediate sector that comes to my mind is the CV play, because we've seen Ashok Leyland is a stock I'm talking of. I've spoken about it in the past. The stock has corrected, numbers are good, they've got a good game plan going ahead. If you want to do an SIP, you could do an SIP in Ashok Leyland. I think it will go back at least to the first 150, 160 kind of levels, and then you can revisit it there and probably take it from there. I think the NBFC space is another space that you can look at, because there are many interesting plays in that, and the NBFCs have sort of proved that they've filled filled the niche which banks sort of left open for them, and they've been able to get good business there. So there I like a Manappuram Finance, I like an Equitas at current levels, I like an AB Capital at current levels. So these are 2-3 stocks that you could look at. Pharma seems to be an upcoming space, so I think that's another space that you can look at. We've spoken earlier of a stock called Shilpa Medicare, which is in the oncology space. So that's another stock that you can do an SIP in. So I think I've given a lot of
Very
options.
good. Yeah.
Yes, and she gave Ashok Leyland too.
Right
so
at the top of the show. Yeah.
Yes, if you have any queries, because we've been getting a lot of queries on Ashok Leyland. If you're holding that stock, hold on. It's bounced back from those levels of 105. Krish on YouTube, he wants to know from a 3-month perspective, Aditya, whether it's good to enter something like HTIL and also stock Morpin Labs. I think this has been the news for a while now. We've seen some gains, but it's a very volatile counter. It's been correcting a lot, but there were some days when you did see 5% lower, 5% higher in the recent past.
So I'll first come to Morpin Labs. I would agree with what you said. It's been extremely volatile of late, and this week stock is down about 6%. Previous week the stock was down again 6%, and prior to those 2 weeks it was up 6%. So it definitely qualifies an extremely volatile stock. I will stay away from the stock. Volumes are thin out here, and the daily price move fluctuation is extremely high. So I will definitely stay away from the stock Morpin Labs. It's trading at close to about 30. Even and if the gentleman actually wants to look at the stock at current levels, I would advise him to keep a stop at 26. Otherwise, I would request him to stay away from the stock, because definitely it's an extremely volatile stock. The second HDIL stock is up 43% this week.
Yep.
And it's sitting at an extremely overbought levels. At current levels, I would not venture at 33 right now. So a dip close to about 30 will make it an attractive buy, but just for the trading bet, strictly for a trading bet. Stock has been a marked underperformer in the space, corrected heavily over years. This year also it's down about 49%. From Jan to now, but this current spike is on volumes, so there can be some more upside to 40, but not at current levels. Close to about 29-30 is a good entry point. Keep a strict stop close to about 25 and play for a target of 40.
All right, Subhash, hopefully that answers your question. Naveen Agarwal on YouTube is asking about 2 particular stocks, Talwalkar Lifestyles and also IDFC Limited for the long term. He's asking if it's time to average, but unfortunately, Naveen, you haven't told us what price you bought at, so we can't really give you that advice, but we can give you an idea as to how to look at these stocks with the long term. As far as Talwalkar is concerned, I think the view has been that there's a lot of players in the
Talwalkar Lifestyle is the gym business.
Yeah, looks.
They demerged.
Yes,
demerged into
yes,
2.
yes.
So his lifestyle is the gym business.
Yeah.
Because there I think I would tend to be a little
cautious,
more
right?
cautious. I'd be also a little positive, because
Really?
I think there is decent growth in that business, because it is that it fits in that whole theme of consumption, aspirational kind of play that you do see getting good traction going ahead. So yes, I think they had their numbers there again were fairly decent, and they have some new offerings coming up. So there I'd be a little more optimistic.
But you wouldn't be worried about the informal space? The competition from the informal space?
But informal space is not listed, and very honestly, they haven't really gone anywhere, from whatever I've seen happening in that space. So yeah, I mean, they're the only really large pan-India sort of presence player.
And the second is IDFC Limited.
Yeah, there in fact I'd be a little more sort of cautious, because their things haven't really played out as one expected them to. There has been talk recently that some buying has come into both IDFC and IDFC Bank. So if it's a trading pop that you're looking for, maybe you could look at it. But I think on a longer term, very honestly, I'm a shareholder and I've been disappointed.
Okay, so irrespective of what happens,
I think all the shareholders of IDFC have been disappointed.
But with regard to Talwalkar, at least it reminds me to go to the gym, right? Anyway.
On the weekend?
Right now, today.
Okay, get fit for your wedding then, Alex. I'm going to move on. Amit Kedia writes to us on Facebook. He's asking to suggest 2 stocks for long-term investment for the next 5 years. I think Sharmila has already advised stocks like Ashok Leyland, Manappuram Finance, AB Capital. But Sharmila, for 5 years, is it good enough to hold?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I hope that answers your query, Amit. Just one more query from Pabani Shankar Bhavira. Sharmila, I'm going to come back to you. He's picked up 2 stocks, Axis and ICICI Bank, from the private banking lot. He's asking which one is a better bet from the next 1 to 2 years perspective.
Well, honestly, I mean, we all know it's in the public space what has really happened in that in the top management changes in both the banks, and in one bank, in Axis Bank, we are waiting for somebody new to take over, and people have been a lot more positive on the developments there. So we've really seen the stock go to new levels. But I think for me the concern on Axis Bank remains that their NPA book was not the best, in the sense that they had lent to a lot of leveraged sectors, and so I would still wait to hear positive news on that. So that's definitely not on my buying list. And I think for ICICI Bank also, I'm not very convinced as to that things have like sort of been put behind them and they're ready to move on from there.
Another private bank name?
Yes, I think that probably you should go with with another name altogether. I like a Yes Bank in that space. I like an IndusInd Bank. Numbers for IndusInd Bank again were good. RBL Bank has been like the new kid on the block, so to speak. So I think look at those banks. That would be my advice.
Aditya is very vigorously nodding his head when Sharmila says RBL Bank, because he's been recommending that stock.
I'll add one more stock, AU Bank, to that list.
I thought he was nodding for yes because
No,
it's a
he
Yes
works
Bank.
for Yes Bank. He can't give recommendations.
Right.
But we've got a caller. Sandeep Shah is calling us from UAE. Thanks so much, Sandeep. It's a long way away that you're calling us from. How can we help you today?
Yeah, good afternoon, experts and the BQ team. My query is on the Shreyas Shipping and Metromoney.com.
Matrimony?
I am planning to Metromoney.com. I am planning to invest both of these shares at the current level for the horizon of the time 2 years.
Okay, let's pull up those two stocks. If you can just...
I think it's Shreyas Shipping.
Shreyas Shipping. Okay, let's pull up the first stock, Shreyas Shipping, and see what it's trading. And then we can pull up Matrimony. Shreyas Shipping about 2% lower in trade. Matrimony just about 0.4% higher. Do you have a comment on Matrimony? if not on the company and maybe the business, perhaps.
I mean, if you're talking of it from an Indian perspective, it's not. There is a steady market sort of for the business. But honestly, I don't track either of the stocks.
But
so
if you're betting on bags, and last time you mentioned, because there's so many weddings in India, hence you can go buy VIP and
yeah, but I looked at the financials of VIP.
Okay.
I've not looked at the financials of Matrimony.
Okay, what we can do though, I'm sure Aditya will help Sandeep out in this sense, both Matrimony and Shreyas Shipping, if we can give him the technicals.
I'll come to Shreyas Shipping first. Stock is down 38% year to date. It's not done too well for itself from the start of the year. This week it's down 24%. There is extreme weakness in the stock that I see. It's breaking down from all its support ranges, from support moving averages. So I would stay away from Shreyas Shipping. I see further downside to 300 minimum in the coming quarters. And as far as Matrimony is concerned, that too has witnessed a sharp correction. So that too is down about 38% from year to date, and this week also it's down significantly, about 4% it's down. So both the stocks are away, stay away from my side. Good.
Okay, I remember one of the days this week, it had a very sharp fall, Matrimony.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. Thanks a lot, Sandeep, for calling us all the way from UAE. Saran Gupta on YouTube, he wants a view on all cargo logistics for the next 2 month perspective. So I'll come back to you, Aditya. He's bought at 117, that's his average price, and he wants to know what to do.
So he can hold on to the stock. Stock has bounced back post testing sub 100 levels, and it's taking support at the 50 DMA, which looks quite decent. So he can keep a stop at 107 and look for a target of 138 and 145. He can hold on at current levels, definitely.
All right, I'm going to club a couple of questions here. We've got, in fact, I said, if I remember correctly, AU Small Finance Bank, even at current levels, is a buy.
Yes.
Melvin has 41 shares of AU Small Finance Bank that he bought at IPO price. He says he bought at 358. He's asking if we should continue to hold or sell. And there are also a couple of questions on HDFC AMC and also on Edelweiss. So you can perhaps think of the technicals for Edelweiss and also HDFC AMC, but with regard to an investment, a fresh investment, would it make sense to choose one of these three? And for Melvin, would it make sense for him to hold on to AU Small Finance, or should he, book profits at this point?
Yes to all.
Okay.
So yes, I think you can be a little careful, especially where HDFC, AMC and Edelweiss is concerned, as to what price you want to enter the stock at. There again, it might be a better idea to do that SIP route, which the earlier investor suggested. But yes, I think, in the sense that they all three are from sectors, from a sector which I like, the entire financial sector space. We did speak of NBFCs specifically earlier. AU Small Finance would be in that space. Edelweiss, again, I think most of these broking stocks are now really not broking anymore, but they have everything in their umbrella really, and a very small portion of their business is really any more linked to broking per se. So you have different pieces of business which are doing well at different points in time. So that I think is a good buy, and I think definitely HDFC AMC, the kind of listing it got, and the overall pedigree, etc. So yes, a big thumb.
And is it a hold for you on AU Small Finance?
Yes.
Okay. Now the technicals on HDFC AMC and Edelweiss.
So as far as AU is concerned, I would advise him to go ahead and buy even at current levels. I'm looking at a target of 750 and higher in few weeks or probably a few months, and won't be surprised if it tests levels of 800 also.
Fair enough.
As far as HDFC AMC is concerned, I have little data because of its newly listed.
Correct.
So I can't suggest much on AU Finance based on technicals. But
HDFC AMC.
yeah, HDFC AMC. As far as Edelweiss is concerned, definitely you can look to hold on to the stock, look to buy even at current levels. Stock has surged about 6.5% in trade today. Despite that, stock looks extremely good. Volumes are healthy. I'm looking at a target of 335 to about 340 here. So definitely buy.
Buy on all.
Okay, 335 to 340. Watch out for that one on Edelweiss. Our next query is coming from Facebook. Karthik Mahadevan writes to us, can we pull up the stock of Stride Shasan? He's bought 1,000 shares at a price of 340, and he would like to know the targets, and he's also asking if he can book profits, and simultaneously he also has a query on Suvain. He's bought 1,500 shares of that one, and he wants to hold for the next 5 years. Okay, let's take the technical query first. Should he be booking profits in Stride Shasan? 340 is the price that he's bought at.
I would recommend him to book profits around 465. 448 is trading right now. He can definitely put a trailing stop loss close to about 425. That will still be above his buying price, and book out profits close to about 465. That's a good level to book out profits.
Okay, and the next one, I'll come to you, Sharmila. Suvain, he's bought 1,500 shares at 200, and he wants to know, can he look to hold on for next 5 years?
Well, honestly, this is not a stock that I track too closely, and in terms of approvals, etc. That's the whole game for these life science companies. So I am not very clear on what's happening there. But what I can say is that we are seeing most of the pharmas turn the corner, in that sense, and that overall buoyancy seems to be returning to the entire sector. So maybe there is a bit of an upside. There is upside left on Suvain Life Science. I'm not sure. But as I said, on a personal level, I prefer some of the larger caps. I would still go with a Sun Pharma or with a Biocon, or we spoke earlier of Shilpa Medicare, with stocks like that.
Can we pull up the 1 month chart for Everest Industries? Just to set the context here, the stock is currently trading, from what I can see, at around 560 levels. Currently, it's up about 38% over the past month. The question here is from Ragha on YouTube. Does it make sense to enter for the long term in Everest Industries?
Well, given that we're talking of roofing,
yes, asbestos sheets.
Yes. So there has been actually some concern on asbestos as a material, but overall, I think that if you're talking of low cost housing and the kind of numbers that Everest has done, then yes, it's not a stock that I have particularly recommended, but I think definitely it's a stock that you can continue to hold.
Okay, that's the view on Everest Industries. Last 1 month has given you good returns of nearly 37 to 38%. Let's move on. We've got a caller from Mumbai, Jagjit Singh. Hi, Jagjit. Good afternoon to you, and thanks a lot for calling us. Tell us what's your query on.
Yeah, the query is that I intend to buy 100 shares of Kotak Mahindra Bank. As you know, the RBI has refused to approve promoter equity stake dilution by issuing perpetual non-convertible preference shares.
Sure.
No, as the promoters cannot, they will not be offering these shares directly. So they will have to, as the time available is only till December, to reduce their stake to 20%. So in that case, they will have to enhance. They will have to do the stake dilution by either some QIP.
Okay. Jagjit, we got your point, and probably that was the reason why the stock corrected yesterday. I just want to know from you, are you holding any shares right now of Kotak Mahindra Bank, or is this going to be a fresh entry point for you?
No, I am already holding some.
Okay, you're holding 100 at what level?
The options are about at 1250.
1250. And what's your time horizon?
Long term.
Long term. So you basically want to know, can somebody look to buy more on these corrections that we saw yesterday?
Yeah.
All
and
right.
also, will there be some cash to be distributed by the promoters as the book value will and a return on equity will become
Sure.
will become
That
less.
only time will tell, but I think Sharmila is the best person to address this query. Sharmila, what would you advise?
First of all, I must say that very well informed investor.
Yes, very well
He's
informed. I was
absolutely
gonna say that.
followed the news on this one, and I think that since he's followed the news on this one, he's aware that not too much is really available in the public space apart
Right.
from what we've read in the papers. So we really need to hear from the management as to how they really want to bring their shareholding down. And there's a timeline on that. Again, as I'm sure he's
December,
aware, 2019, 2020, there are 2 dates by which they have to bring it down. And the route that they choose to sort of keep their voting rights and at the same time
Exactly,
dilute,
yeah.
that's failed. So, what's the next option? So I think there are, the obvious option seems to be dilution. How they do that is something that the market waits to see. What happens, I think, what I've seen in cases in the past is that, if you have a large chunk of shares coming into the market, any of the large shareholders or, the funds or any large investor who wants to buy the shares or who's been wanting to buy shares of Kotak Bank, his demand is met by that. So there remains a bit of an overhang on the stock, in such a case, because the buyer has evaporated. The people who are buying the stock at this point in time at such a high valuation, they get off because their demand has been met because of this
But
dilution.
Sharmila, the long-term story
So the
remains
long term
intact.
stays intact.
Yeah.
It is an overvalued bank in terms
Right.
of the price it's trading at to its book value. So if it corrects further, you can look to enter. But as of now, I just wait for further developments.
For a fresh entry, that makes absolute sense because the kind of volatility that you could see, in fact, that was evidenced, in fact, if you look at the chart for the last week or so. Anyway, let's get another question. It's a broader based question. Santosh Kinikar is asking for a fundamental view on the infrastructure space. And it's a fair question because a lot of people spoke about that space going to election year, the kind of spends that the government would do. What are you really seeing with regard to that?
So it's very interesting because if you heard Sadbhav Engineering speak of their post their numbers yesterday, the numbers for Sadbhav were good. They've got a couple of order wins, and what they indicated was that on the NHAI website they show some number of orders that have to be awarded and which have not been awarded so far. And I think those orders come to a value of some 35,000 crore kind of a value. And their expectation is that in Q3 you could see these orders being given. And I think that's a fair estimation because infrastructure when you're going into an election year is a good piece to actually showcase that this is what you've done. And even earlier when we heard of Bharatmala and the kind of more powers being given to NHAI, that looked like a very well fleshed out piece. But those orders haven't really translated and been awarded to companies. No, they've not been awarded to companies. Execution is still far off. So yes, I think it's and all the stocks have corrected. So I think it's reasonable to think that I like Sadbhav Engineering, I liked NCC. So I think there could be a whole host of stocks that you could look at in that space.
Okay, that's the view coming in on the infra space. Let's just pull up Asian Paints on Facebook. Ram wants a view on this one for the next 1 month perspective. He's bought at 14.05. He's asking what can be the specific target till September end, Aditya. What would you advise him? Because currently the shares are at 13.94.
So from very short-term perspective, stock can see some bit of a correction further. Close to about 1375 is what I see stock can slide to. From there on, stock can again witness an upside till 1450 to about 1460 levels. At current levels, I see first a correction to 1375 to 1370 and then an up move. So probably the rest of the August you can see some bit of correction. And from there on, September, I see stock remain in this range from 1430 to about 1440.
Okay, this was Asian Paints. Another one for you. Sridhar, in fact, wants a technical view for Meghmani Organics. He's invested at an average price of 125 and he's bought 20,000 shares. So he needs advice as to how to get out of the rut that he's in because the stock is currently at 91.
So though stock is down slightly from his buying price, but from what I see on the charts, it's extremely bullish. I wouldn't want to exit from the stock at current levels. Keep a stop close to about 85 and wait for stock to test levels of 120 as well. So probably 110, 120, these are two levels I'm watching for in the stock. This is more of a consolidation that's going on in the stock post the sharp run-up that it had seen from 30 to about 120. You have to keep in mind that once stock starts to move from 30 to 140, that's a big move, 120. Post that, definitely stock will get into a consolidation phase. So this is just a consolidation phase that the stock is into. There's no weakness to say which will tell me to get out from the stock. I would stick on with the stock, probably look to buy more if the stock crosses 100. I'll be looking at a target of 120 here.
And that's actually a very fair point at this point to mention that a lot of retail investors tend to jump onto the bus a little late when it's already nearing the end of its journey and then fail to get off.
Yeah, that's right. So be careful while you are executing your trades and also when you're exiting. That's very important. Okay, the next one, Sharmila, I'm going to come to you. Debarpan Sarkar, he wants you to compare stocks like Mirza International, and he's asking if, from an entry perspective, which is a better bet right now, Bata, which is at all-time high, or Mirza International? One ratio I know for this industry which people look at is price to sales. So for Mirza, it's somewhere about 1.3, 1.4, and Bata, obviously, it's a premium stock now, so that is price to sales is somewhere about 4.5 to 5 times. So would you go the valuation way or something like Bata, which has consistently been performing well and the stock's been going up?
Very honestly, I don't cover Mirza too closely, but yes, I think to make a short point, the overall footwear space, if you saw it, when they made that announcement about GST and they increased the cap from 500 to 1,000. So I think that could be another interesting parameter to add to the mix and see what is your percentage of sales that comes from that under 1,000 bracket. Because obviously, I think this was a very good move because 500 was a very, very small price point in today's environment. So I think 1,000 is more reasonable, and that is a benefit that will pass on. And I think most of them have done, they've had like reasonable Relaxo and which is the other one? Liberty. I think, they've had like, very decent numbers as well. But Bata I like for completely other reasons. I think that given the fact that the kind of expansion they're talking of their stores and the fact that they're multinational and they have that pan-India presence. So it does get premium valuations, and I think that is something that almost all MNC stocks have done. So I would continue to be positive on Bata. But yes, as a fresh entry, I think if you want to look, maybe you could look at the others. And then, as I'm saying, throw this new parameter into the mix of what is your percentage of business from under 1,000.
Okay.
Interesting query from Mohammed Ayubi. Let's pull up Avanti feeds and look at the longer term chart, maybe first 1 month, and also look at the year-to-date period for Avanti. It's currently trading around the 450 mark. He's asking if it's bottomed out. So on the charts, let's see what the kind of data throws up. And also for the 5-year period, there have been concerns about the market, about the US. Perhaps a little too long to look at that horizon, considering the kind of regulatory environment that's playing out in terms of trade the world over, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I think you need to give it another couple of quarters because they are trying to circumvent that problem. But how successfully they do it and how that translates into their bottom lines, whether you see that picture improving, is something only time will tell. So all I've heard from read and heard is that there are efforts to sort of get around that problem. But they've admitted that this is going to hit their margins. And I think that's the phase we are in because it corrected. And I think it was also part of ASM, or is it still in the ASM group? I'm not sure of that.
The list has gotten too long for us to remember offhand. All right.
Not there anymore. But as far as bottoming out is concerned, I would not say that the stock has yet bottomed out. Because honestly, for me to understand whether the stock has bottomed out or not, it has to form a base and then start to go up. Stock is not going up. Every time it's making a lower high and a lower low. So for me, till the time stock starts to make a higher high and a higher low, stock hasn't bottomed out. So it is yet to bottom out.
Okay, that's the view in Avanti feeds, and we're really running out of time. Thank you all our viewers for tuning in and sending us your queries, and thank you Sharmila and Aditya for joining us today and helping our viewers. Well, that's all that we have on this edition of Ask PQ.
Up next on Bloomberg Quint is Power Lunch, so do stay tuned.